So it would seem to make, from my understanding of it, it would seem to make sense that those services that have been paid for should still be offered to the private school student as well.
Well, yeah, the services, meaning you've chosen to go to a private school. That's your choice, and that you have to pay for. But the issue of special education, the issue of challenges, the issue of leveling that field, and since the money is coming through the federal government, that should transfer onto the children, any child, no matter where he or she is enrolled.
And okay, and that's the way they do it in New York. What are some? You had a little chart there of other states.
Yeah, I just recently went to a very big education conference, PEACH, the Partnership for Excellence in Jewish Education. There were 1,000 people from all over the country who merged in Baltimore. And one of the sessions that I went to, they actually charted several states and what they're giving to private schools. They did not charge Connecticut, but I know Connecticut, and we get no reimbursement for textbooks. We get no reimbursement for technology. We get very little for staff development unless we join their staff development initiative. We do get busing, and that's a local school district decision. So in Stamford, if you live in Stamford, you'll be bused by the Stamford School District to and from my school.
Right.
But in terms of special education services, you'll get the evaluation, but you will not get the service.
Interesting. Okay, let's move on to leadership and the role of the headmaster in the school and those kinds of subjects.
Well, the headmaster is the head, okay? He's the CEO, and he's the one who sets the tone, or she sets the tone in the building. What is leadership? Leadership is having a direction, having a way to enunciate and to articulate a vision that's in the school with you and your staff. But leadership is also taking that leap and really capitalizing on the L and saying, I've listened to my constituents, I've talked to my teachers, I hear their point of view, but I believe that this is the direction that we should go in. I believe that this is what we should do. Not always is it 100% agreed upon. I think of a very interesting story that I had in the public sector. I had an outstanding first grade teacher. She'd been teaching first grade for a number of years, and really parents liked her, children liked her, but she was coming to the end of first grade in the sense that she had been teaching for over 7, 8 years in first grade.
Okay.
And I saw her having the ability to teach an older class, 4th grade, 5th grade. I broached it to her, and of course she said no. And why? Because there was no financial incentive, number one, for her to move grades. Number two, it involved a lot of output from her to redo her plans, get familiar with materials, etc. I let it go for a year. I let it go for 2 years. By the end of the 3rd year, as we were moving into the 4th grade year, I said to her, you know, it's time. It's time for you to move into the 4th grade. And so I did. And I moved her into the 4th grade. And the truth was, she became an outstanding 4th grade teacher. And she started to look at what she was doing. And she started to question and to say, why do I do this? Why can't I do this? It was a win-win for everyone. That's true also for administrators. I teach at graduate school. And I tell my students, 8 to 10 years in a school is max. At the end of that time, you need to move on, because at that point, you've done what you needed to do in the school. You've moved the school wherever you were able to, and you know everyone's idiosyncratic behaviors. You know, in Yiddish we call it, we know everyone's shtick. And the challenge isn't there. At least the challenge isn't there for me, and you have to move on to a new situation.
Now you were, like you mentioned, several years, over 10, 20 years as the assistant superintendent in New Rochelle.
I was 10 years as assistant superintendent. Yeah.
And then you move on to the Moriah School, which is a big school in New Jersey.
Yeah, Moriah School, when I went there, it's in Englewood. It's the largest co-ed day school in the state of New Jersey. My children went to day school, and I was actually president of the Board of Education at Ashar for over 10 years.
Wow, so you really got it from both.
I got it from both
angles. Really.
You got it. And it was wonderful. You know, some days when I'd have a board meeting at night, I would be a principal during the day in the public sector, and then I'd move to the private sector at night. So I tasted both worlds.
Did your role as the principal give you some kind of a little bit of humility or sense of compassion as a board member?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it gave me humility in the sense that I knew that sometimes I had to say to myself, Jerry, let it alone. It's not your school. It's his school. But it also gave me a sense of frustration, especially when I saw things that were going amok that could be changed, and yet I didn't have the ability to do that. I was just advisory. And you know, advisory up to a point. I mean, certainly if the head of a school doesn't move the school ahead, and you would recommend, you know, termination and look for someone else, but that was very, very difficult for me. So when the opportunity of Mariah came to me, I was called if I was interested in vying for the position as headmaster. I said to myself, I really wanted to be superintendent of schools, but this looks interesting. And I went for an interview, and as you can see by this afternoon, I love to talk, and I love to engage with people.
Yes, yes.
And I liked it. I liked the school, I liked the challenge, and it was a school that really needed to move ahead, and I took it. And I was there for a number of years.
Wow, and then we got you after that point in your career. And you also enjoyed very much being the adjunct instructor at the Azriel.
I was at Azrieli Graduate School for a number of years. As a matter of fact, I hope one day to return to Azrieli as a full-time faculty member. I adored it. I adored teaching at night. I adored teaching adults and really guiding them. What got me into graduate school, I had done some adjunct work before, but Yeshiva University had gotten a grant from the Avichai Foundation, and they set up a program called Atid, which was a professional development program for potential school leaders. And they asked me if I was interested in teaching in the program that summer, and I did, and then they offered me an adjunct, and I taught several different courses for them. I have a lot of information and experience, and I really wanted to share that and work with people to help them develop as good and effective administrators.
Oh, that's fabulous. Now, if you were the superintendent of schools for Connecticut,
for a school district in Connecticut?
No, well, let's say you were the head honcho up in Hartford.
Oh, okay. In Hartford, yeah.
Okay. McQuillan's, it was, yeah. If you had that job, what are 3 things that you would do for the school system here in Connecticut?
Well, first of all, I make sure that there's clear vision in terms of where the schools need to go, and look at the issue of testing in today's world, because we have become, I was just reading in Education Week this week, the concept that many school districts are just working towards those competency exams and just working towards those achievement tests so that their stats and their data for the district can be good, and that really is not what a good school district.
They're teaching to the test, aren't they?
Yeah, they are teaching to the tests.
Is that a result of No Child Left Behind?
Yes, it's a result of, well, it's a bigger result. If you look at the overarching, as I like to call it, it's the overarching of the lay people and politicians looking at systems that were weak and not delivering and producing students that were not fully qualified to go out in the workforce. And so the issue of standards, the issue of competencies, all merge together, and they push school districts to address accountability issues. And the accountability issue were the tests.
So I see. So the assessment was correct that these were the real problems, but the solution wasn't the correct solution. What would have been a better solution at that point in time, do you think?
Well, I think that there needs to be a tremendous emphasis on professional development, good professional development, professional development at many levels. What happens in education, people who go to conferences, there's no follow-up in schools usually. And if you were to ask a teacher, did you go to this initiative? Do you know this program? They'd say, oh yeah, I had a great time at that program. But most of the administrators and the teachers are not there to support and nurture that initiative. Staff development, the beginning of staff development is going to a workshop. That is the beginning. And it's involving how do you get teachers to dialogue between and amongst themselves? How do you get them to model? How do you get them to incorporate new strategies? How do you give them feedback? All of that comes under the rubric of professional development. And that's something else that I'd want to see in school districts.
So it's sort of the solution, No Child Left Behind, targeted the students really, and you're saying that it would have been better to have targeted the professional staff.
Well, you have to target both. You have to target both, and you have to target them and nurture them, because if you don't, initiatives die a quick death, never to be resurrected.
But the responsibility, though, as far as putting the responsibility on the professional staff to have this kind of knowledge and to be engaged in that kind of extra mile, kind of activity.
Well, when I first came to bicultural, we did an initiative on a pedagogic model called Understanding by Design. It's a program that comes out from Jay McTighe and Grant Wiggins. It's about backward design. It's about looking at instruction in a different way. It's about determining what are the essential questions, what's the overarching that you want kids to leave the unit with, and then how do you structure in your lessons and your units to get to those questions and to get to those overarching understandings. That was the beginning. Throughout my time at bicultural, we've used that when we've gone into, I've worked with administrators and teachers, when we've gone into classrooms, when we've looked at lesson plans, when we've given feedback on professional development days, so that it becomes more of a language, a viable and usable professional language within the school, and it has a direct effect on instruction. You
said something earlier, just in the last few minutes here, about, I forget exactly the terminology, like cultivating the intelligence of the student. What was that? It was very
nurturing?
Yeah, nurturing. Yeah, nurturing the...
You have to nurture both kids and you have to nurture both teachers. You have to keep whetting their appetites. You have to keep stretching them. I do something every day, and believe me, I'm sure there are other techniques that people do that are can be probably more effective than what I do. In line with what we're doing in terms of professional development, I'll pull an article out from the journals, or pull an article from the newspaper, or pull an article from something that someone has written locally, and it's a way of getting teachers to look at it if they choose to dialogue between and amongst each other if they choose to, or to just, ruminate about it and say, what is that? What is that saying? What, and that's what being a teacher is. It's about constantly questioning what you're doing, and that's what the excitement of education is.
And it's that thought piece, that soft, pithy stuff, the invisible stuff. That is most powerful.
That's
right?
the most important. That's what I love.
You get it straight in here, you're going to go out and be.
Rabbi Praver, what I've always said to myself, when I'm no longer excited about going into an education bookstore, an education library, or looking at a textbook or looking at a professional development journal, it's time for me to pack it in, and I'm not ready to pack it in yet.
Don't do it. We love you.
Thank you very much.
Shalom. We've been talking with Dr. Gerald Kirschenbaum, Headmaster Extraordinaire. Thank you so much for tuning into Rabbi Rock. Shalom.
If I put your man, if I